All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome in. Farzin Vasugian here with you on a Saturday morning. It is the Chief Zone podcast. Happy Saturday to all of you. Hope you're all having a great weekend. For those of you who stayed up late last night, props to all of you guys. I was unable to survive the night. The eyelids were just too damn heavy, and I got too comfortable, and I missed a Sky Moore punt and return touchdown. So for those of you who caught it live, congratulations. Yeah, some good things happened late in the fourth quarter for the Chiefs, but at the end of the day, the Chiefs ended up losing in a blowout to the Seahawks in week 2 of the preseason. And there are certainly some reactions to this one here. And I think context is very important, and we'll get into that. I'll give you guys my positives and negatives. There are a couple of major negatives to go over here regarding Kansas City's depth, not because they lost this game, but because of some injuries that took place in yesterday's preseason game. So I'll go over that, and I'll read some of you guys' comments, questions as the podcast goes on. So if you haven't already, comment below. Let's chat. Let me know your thoughts on yesterday's preseason game. And let me know your thoughts on everything that happened against the Seahawks. Want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. That is where I go to for all of my sports ticketing needs. In fact, next weekend, Friday, is the very first Chiefs game that'll take place at Arrowhead this season. And then the next day, Saturday, is going to be the first KU football game. I'll be at both of those games thanks to my friends at SeatGeek. If you're a new SeatGeek customer, you can put in my promo code Farzin and save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets at checkout, enter my promo code Farzin if you're a new SeatGeek customer, and you will save $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. I appreciate you, Eddie. Yeah, not a real fan if you fall asleep during a preseason game. You miss a Sky Moore punt and return touchdown. That is what happened last night. Sky Moore scored a punt and return touchdown last night. How about that? Yeah, Sky Moore the GOAT, baby. We'll get into Sky Moore in a moment because he had quite an interesting game last night. Now, let me just start with the score here. It was 33-16, and the Chiefs lost this game. It was fairly decided by well before the fourth quarter. Now, I understand, we're in an era where everyone's commenting on social media, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, X, some of the above, all of the above. And people like to be facetious, sarcastic. It is a little hard to tell sometimes who's trying to be funny, who's just joking around, and who's not. But I am seeing some people. And now, if I know you, if I've interacted with you on social media, or I know you personally, I can tell if you're joking or not. But if I don't know you, I follow you, or I interact with you, or your comments come up on my feed, I can't quite tell if you're joking or not. But my point is, I am seeing some people who are frustrated with the look from the Chiefs' backups last night. Now, like I said, context matters with this kind of stuff here. And by the way, I see a lot of you guys starting to come into the live stream now. Please comment below. Let us know your thoughts on anything from last night's game. If you guys have comments, questions, please comment below. Be patient. I'm going to get my thoughts out of the way first, and then I'll get to everyone's comments and questions as the podcast rolls on here this morning. This is not going to be a very long podcast, so get your questions in now before the end of the podcast. Context matters with these kinds of things, okay? Andy Reid did hint that some of the starters would not play in this game. Okay, well, let's go over who didn't play. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Jawan Taylor, Chris Jones, Trent McDuffie, Nick Bolton, Jalen Watson, Drew Tranquill, Kareem Hunt, and Hollywood Brown did not play. Now, those two guys have been dealing with injuries recently. The word is they should be okay and ready for week 1 of the regular season in Brazil. Hollywood Brown was warming up during pregame. And I remember the Chiefs were putting out a picture of him just warming up. I thought he was actually going to play for a moment, but did not end up happening. Now, these next guys I'm going to mention here. George Karlaftis, Rashi Rice, Xavier Worthy, Isaiah Pacheco, Noah Gray, Mike Pennell, Juju Smith-Schuster, Jalen Royals, Tyquan Thornton. They all played in this game. Nobody played more of those players I just mentioned. And I'll repeat the list one more time. Karlaftis, Rice, Worthy, Pacheco, Gray, Pennell, Smith-Schuster, Royals, and Thornton. None of those players played more than 7 snaps. Noah Gray had 7, Pennell had 7, Juju had 7, Royals had 6, Thornton had 5. Karlaftis, I believe, had 6. Rice played... I don't have it in front of me. Rice and Worthy, one of them played 2 snaps, the other played 3 snaps. Anyway, it wasn't much. It was just a couple. Pacheco just played a couple of snaps. A lot of starters either did not play or did not play more than 7 snaps. Look at Royals and Thornton. I'm not saying Royals and Thornton are going to get cut. I think the Chiefs really like those 2 receivers. 2 young receivers. Thornton, of course, didn't work out in New England, trying to make it work in Kansas City. Royals, obviously, a draft pick. I would think those guys would need a little bit of experience in these games, and they literally played just a little bit. Hardly got involved in this game. Thornton did have a catch. Royals had a nice punt, a kick return. And by the way, all these snap numbers I'm reading are just offense and defense only. So context matters. So for anyone, and again, I don't know who's being facetious, who's being sarcastic on social media, but I'm just seeing a lot of comments on social media of people kind of hitting the panic button a little bit. Remember last year when the Chiefs rested their starters in week 18 because they had the 1 seed locked up? There was literally nothing to play for against Denver. So Andy Reid does the right thing and rested the starters. He's done that many times. This is not the first time. We've seen it many times in Kansas City. What was the narrative coming out of that game? Because the Chiefs lost that one 38-0, which again, I don't want to sit here and say it was insignificant because a lot of those backups that played, they were vying for a job for next. I think Carson Wentz certainly wanted to impress a lot of people because he knew his situation. I don't think it's fair to judge a guy on that situation, but I digress. That's not the point. I still remember coming out of that game, a lot of people outside of Kansas City, and I recognize this is wishful thinking, but a lot of people said, oh no, if Kansas City gets a lot of injuries, they're in trouble for the playoffs. Well, yeah, I mean, as much as the Chiefs dealt with injuries last year, they won 15 games. They rested their starters. I think the only key players who played the entire game were Shamari Connor and Brian Cook in that game last year. So for anyone that wants to judge the Chiefs in this game, or for anyone that judged the Chiefs last year when they lost 38-0 to Denver, take a chill pill, simmer down. This is the preseason here. The Chiefs had a lot of players who did not play in this game. Patrick Mahomes has only played 1 drive in 2 preseason games. And that was a short drive. I mentioned this last night before the game. I think the negative about the fumble from Arizona's kick returner was that it put the Chiefs basically in the red zone or close to it. I don't remember exactly where the Chiefs got the recovery, but it was a very quick drive. And the negative from that is we didn't get to see Patrick Mahomes get a long drive. Now, we don't know what's going to happen next Friday. Usually on Friday, you never see any starter play across the NFL, especially in this 3-game preseason format that we've had for a few years now. So I'm really curious, and I know Andy Reid was asked about this last night, what's going to happen next week with the starters. Andy said he'll get into that later in the week. He did hint that they could play, which I find kind of interesting. But we'll see. I know Cole from How About Those Chiefs, he said on his show that the field that they use at Lumen Field in Seattle is not natural grass, it's turf. Maybe that's a big reason why the Chiefs held out their starters or key players in this one and their other starters only played a few snaps, like I mentioned earlier. So for anyone that's just being sarcastic, okay, great, you're joking. My comments are not directed to you. But for anyone that has any legitimate concern about what happened last night, slow down. I just gave you the context to what happened last night. If Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, if those guys played 3 drives and the Chiefs look like that, yeah, I would say we need to have a serious conversation because that did not look good, but that's not what happened. And I know Mark Schlereth, longtime Bronco, still a Bronco technically. I know he was celebrating a preseason defeat for the Chiefs because that's what you do nowadays because the Chiefs don't lose regular season games often. They lose preseason games more. So you have to celebrate those while you can. If you're part of the Chiefs, what do they call it? Chiefs derangement system. You have to enjoy those victories against Kansas City because you don't get to enjoy them much in the regular season or the postseason for that matter. I know last year before I get to Colin Cowherd, a couple of people tweeted at Mark Schlereth and they're like, dude, it's the preseason. They're backups. And Schlereth said, yeah, but they're still professional athletes. Colin Cowherd did this last year where he was impressed with Bo Nix and what Bo Nix did against Kansas City last year in week 18. And his co-host, who happens to be a notorious Chiefs hater, and I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, Jason McIntyre, I think. He actually pushed back and said those were backups. And Colin goes, yeah, they're professional athletes. Okay, come on. Like, don't give me this professional athlete BS, okay? I know they're professional athletes. They can play the game better than any of us can. Just because they're backups doesn't mean they're not worth anything. They're at the position they're at for a reason. But they're backups, okay? Like, let's not play games here. Let's not sugarcoat shit and really act like that should have been a competitive game. The Chiefs rested a lot of starters in this game. So for anyone that's panicking, slow down. Slow it down. If the Chiefs start losing all 22 of their starters to injury, let's hit the panic button. Let's talk then. Until then, I'm not panicking over anything like this. Now, with all of that said, we still got to recap the game in the way that it happened. And the big conversation coming out of this game is Sky Moore. Oh, boy. Let's have a conversation about Sky Moore, y'all. So Sky Moore in this game had 2 drops. No one is shocked by that whatsoever. I think in between the 2 drops, he also fumbled a kick return, and he had to quickly recover that and take it in the end zone to prevent any kind of danger from happening at that point. And then, if you're like me and you fell asleep, you missed an 88-yard punt return touchdown from Sky Moore, the legend. That's what you missed at the end of the game. And listen, I still... watching Sky Moore, I was like, damn, this dude's making guys miss. He's going down the sidelines, not going out of bounds, and he showed off a little bit of speed there. What is Sky Moore's 40 time? I think it was a 4.4240, something along those lines. 4.41. Okay. I'm pulling up his scouting report here from NFL.com. This was put together by Lance Zerloin. Draft projection round 2. That's where he ended up going. Here are the strengths that they mentioned about Sky Moore. Consistently productive in all 3 seasons in college. Plays with a good overall pace. Ability to tilt coverage with his press release. Efficient footwork and snapping off stop routes. Creates space with route leverage, quick to snap eyes to the quarterback after his break, squares to the throw, and secures the catch through contact. Okay, now that last one there, I haven't really seen that in the NFL. Now, the other stuff, being able to run after the catch, makes some guys miss. We saw that on that kick return there, or punt return, We saw some of that there. But in general, with Sky Moore, we haven't been able to see that because he can't catch the ball here. Now, I know after the game, and this one's also getting a lot of reactions. If you guys heard Andy Reid's post-game press conference, he answered a couple of questions about Sky Moore and his interesting day. And Andy Reid said, that's not like him. He's better than that, referring to the 3 drops and fumbles combined. Now, understand this, and I've said this before about Andy Reid. Andy Reid, the last thing he will ever do is throw anyone under the bus. We've seen this many times in Kansas City, where there's a lot of frustration with certain players. Alex Smith in 2017, Bob Sutton when he was a defensive coordinator, especially in 2018, Dan Sorensen and his defensive play in 2021, Kadarius Toney and all the other receivers, really, where they had the drop issues. And a lot of people were also criticizing Matt Nagy and Connor Embry. Whenever Andy Reid was asked about any of those guys that I just mentioned, and I'm sure there are other guys I'm forgetting who have maybe not been on the good side of Chiefs Kingdom, Andy Reid never throws anyone under the bus. In fact, he'll always find something positive to say about anyone, even when they're struggling. He'll acknowledge, yeah, sure, they've had some issues, but he'll be quick to point out the positives. And he's never going to throw anybody under the bus for 2 reasons. One, that's just not his style. He's not going to throw anyone under the bus. Number 2, and I don't think this is going to work, but you have to at least try. Don't you think the Chiefs, seeing Sky Moore get a punt return touchdown and Andy Reid going, flexing a little bit in front of the media when asked about Sky Moore, don't you think that's an attempt to get even a 7th round draft pick out of Sky Moore? If the Chiefs, people have been saying for a long time, trade Sky Moore. And I've been saying all along, what the hell are you going to get for this guy? If the Chiefs can get a 7th round pick for Sky Moore, I'll celebrate that. Sure. I'll take that one. I don't think that will happen. But if it does, I'll let you know I was wrong. I'll let you guys know that I did not see that coming. Never in a million years. I don't know realistically, like if the Chiefs do want to keep Sky Moore, I don't know realistically what is the expectation from him. And I've said this about a couple of other guys like FAU. During yesterday's pregame live chat, a lot of the conversation was surrounding FAU and Sky Moore. And first of all, what is the possibility that they'll make the team? And number 2, if they do make the team, what do we expect from them? What can they do for the team? Because I'm looking at the wide receivers right now. Okay. Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy. Those are your 3 guys. And I know we haven't had a chance to talk about Rashee Rice with the latest news on this podcast. It sounds like Rashee Rice is going to be able to play the first 4 weeks. That can change. But for the time being, Rice is expected to play the first 4 games, and it looks like he's got a hefty suspension coming on the way. We'll get into that a little later on the podcast. So those are your 3 guys for sure who've got locks on the roster. Juju, I think, is a lock. Jalen Royals, we're at 5 already. Tyquan Thornton didn't play a lot last night, and I think that's an indication that he's right around a roster lock, unless he completely just drops the ball figuratively in the last preseason game, which I don't even know if he'll play much in that game. So that's 6. I'm assuming Nico Remigio or Jason Brownlee would have to be 7. Maybe Elijah Badger is in the mix there. I don't know. But I still don't think Sky Moore did enough to make this team. I've said before, I think there's a possibility Sky Moore makes the practice squad, because I don't know of the other 31 NFL teams, when Sky Moore gets cut and he goes through the waiver wire, who's going to claim him? Who is in a hurry for Sky Moore services? But I guess if you see that punt return touchdown, and I recognize, sure, a lot of those players for Seattle, those are also guys who will probably get cut in a little over a week, 2 weeks. But there might be a team out there that sees that and they think, okay, maybe we can use that to our advantage. So maybe Sky Moore's stock went up a little bit. Keep in mind, he did have that nice punt return against Cincinnati that did set up Mahomes' run plus the penalty where he got hit out of bounds by, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Joseph Osai, that's who it was. So Sky Moore's had a couple moments, just a couple. But he had a punt return, a really good one a couple of years ago in the AFC title game, and he just had an 88-yard punt return touchdown in this game. I still don't think he did enough. But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what Andy Reid thinks. It matters what Brett Veach thinks. It matters what those guys think of Sky Moore more than any of us, really. I still don't know if those guys think that he's going to make the team. I still don't believe that. I think they're trying to use him for trade bait. You don't want to just cut a second-round draft pick. You don't want to cut FAU, your first-round pick from 2 years ago. You want to at least give them the benefit of the doubt and give them every opportunity possible. And if there's an opportunity to try to trade them, I guess they'll sugarcoat it publicly and do their best just to get a seventh. I'm not going to argue against that, but I also don't think that is going to work. Let me know your thoughts on Sky Moore or anything else that happened in last night's preseason game. I'll go over some of the positives and negatives in a moment here. I'll read some of the comments. Appreciate you, Rachel. Thank you. You watched until 10 p.m. and said, forget I went to bed. Yeah, well, I think a lot of people did. It seemed like nobody was trying to win a job, Joshua says. The effort was kind of tough. Kurt says, no way Tanyan doesn't make the roster. Yeah, he's certainly been making a case for himself, a very strong case, and I'll get into Big Bob in a moment here. Yeah, a lot of you guys talking about Robert Tanyan. People need to chill out. Preseason is a chance for the rookies to make the final roster. Mary says they don't get it. Those who are complaining, yeah. Joshua, I see your comment about Kingsley. I'm going to get into him shortly. Robert says Minshew looked better on his drives. Yeah, I thought Minshew did look better in yesterday's game compared to last week's game. Nick says Sky Moore is a joke. That was the first good thing he did in over 2 years. I think I saw a tweet. Someone said that he hasn't caught a pass since he didn't catch a pass last year. So he hasn't caught a pass since the 2023 season. Which that's the year where, all the players had those drops and everything. So I just struggle. Sure, the way Sky Moore looked running on that punt return right there, if Sky Moore can do that on offense, sure, I want that guy on the Chiefs. You want to go to battle alongside a guy like that. If he can show that consistently on offense and special teams, yeah, keep Sky Moore. Let's use the hell out of him. But I'm not holding my breath on that happening because this is what, year 4 now for Sky Moore? We've had 3 years already, and I know he missed a lot of time last year with injuries, which, fair or not, that works against you. You could say, hey, what about Rashee Rice? Yeah, but Rashee Rice has been productive, very productive, even with the amount of time he missed last year. That was the only play that the Chiefs Sports Center showed from the game. Oh, well, good to see that. Mark says Sky beat professional athletes, aka backups, on that return to. Yeah, I suppose. But like I said, and I know you're being facetious because you put professional athletes in quotes there, but they are backups, as I acknowledged earlier. EB would have said, I assume you mean Eric Bieniemy, would have said he has no hands. Yeah. Okay, so I'm caught up on all of the Rashee Rice comments. I see a lot of your guys' questions and comments regarding some of the players that I actually do have on my list. So I'm going to get into the positives and the negatives right now here. Let's start with the good. Some positives. You guys mentioned Robert Tanyan, so I'll mention. I'll start off with Robert Tanyan. Robert Tanyan, once again, Kansas City's leading pass catcher in this one. He had 5 receptions. No one even came close to that on the Chiefs, or even in this game for that matter. Tanyan had 5 catches. Brashard Smith and Nico Remigio each had 2. That's the second most on the Chiefs. So Robert Tonyan was once again the primary target for Kansas City. He had 41 yards in this game. The second most was Isaiah Pacheco with 22, and Brashard Smith had 16. Tyquan Thornton had 1 catch for 14 yards. So Robert Tonyan, once again, your leading pass catcher for the Kansas City Chiefs in the preseason. And it also helps that he had that end zone grab. But a nice throw there by Gardner Minshew while backpedaling a little bit and was able to find Robert Tonyan wide open near the middle of the end zone. So that was good to see. Another positive from last night's game, and for the second week in a row, another good performance from this player is rookie Jeffrey Bossa. I know I mentioned with him, among the non-special teams guys, he's always one of the very first guys that made it onto the practice field in training camp. And I think you're starting to see his effort really start to show off here. This was a guy where I wasn't really sure what to expect from him because he's behind Leo Chenal, Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil on the depth chart. But whenever he's been on the field, man, he's made a play, especially against the run. Last week, he was going out there getting QB hits. And this week, he went out there and had a couple of nice run stops. And I think that's good to see from Jeffrey Bossa. I remember he had a little bit of an injury last week, kind of a short scare there, but he was able to come back from that within the same game. Brashard Smith, I mentioned his stats earlier. He actually showed off some of his speed. And also another thing he showed off that I was a little impressed with in this game, as he ran 3 times for 22 yards. That's a pretty good yard per carry average. Brashard Smith evading defenders. Even when defenders got close to him, he found a way to move away and find some space and try to get some ground there on a play that should have been a short gain, and he made it a longer play. And I think that's what you want from your running back. This is a big positive from last night's game. Rookie defensive end, Ashton Gelati. So on, I think it was a 4th and goal play, where Drew Lock, who's got some experience in the NFL, and of course, a lot of people familiar with him for his time in Mizzou, he had a play action, and the first read, where on a quick pass from a play action on a short route, you saw Seattle utilize that a lot in last night's game. Kansas City was not ready for that defensively. But on 4th and goal, Kansas City took that read away from Drew Lock. And Ashton Gelati recognized the play action, and he started to go after Drew Lock. Now, Drew Lock had a little bit of time to still make it an adjustment, but because he saw Ashton Gelati, he started to panic a bit. And because he panicked, he was about a second late throwing the football and missed what could have been a wide open touchdown in the end zone there. But thanks to Ashton Gelati, he put some pressure on Drew Lock, and when Drew Lock fired that pass, Brian Cook was able to get in there and prevent a touchdown score on 4th down. So I really like that play by Ashton Gelati. I think he deserves a lot of credit from that play right there and preventing the Seahawks from putting more points on the scoreboard. Unfortunately, the Chiefs gave the ball back off a safety. I can't remember who was carrying the football. I think it was Carson Steele. Which leads me to my next point, the negatives. Let's go over some of the bad. And I'll start with Carson Steele, who got stuffed on that run play there. In fact, when it came to running the football, Carson Steele, 7 rushes, 22 yards. Same number of yards as Brashard Smith, but 4 more carries than Smith. And that was not a good day for Carson Steele. Carson Steele was someone who a lot of people liked seeing in last year's preseason. Did a lot of good things in last year's preseason. And the Chiefs thought that maybe it would carry over to the regular season, especially with the absence of Pacheco and Kareem Hunt trying to gradually get back into things because he had been out of action for quite some time. No OTAs, no training camp, no offseason program for him. So they had to rely on Carson Steele, and he showed ball security issues in the regular season. And in last night's preseason game, definitely different than how he looked in last year's preseason games. So Carson Steele, his stock certainly has gone down, in my opinion. One player that I think we've got to start being just aware of here would be Kingsley Suamataia, the new left guard for the Kansas City Chiefs. Did not look good in last night's game. And he hasn't really looked tremendous in the preseason overall. Last week, about average. Nothing too terrible, nothing too great. But last night certainly was a bad night for Kingsley Suamata. Yeah, just getting beat, not being able to block players on running plays, not really providing the pass protection that Gardner Minshew needed. Kingsley Suamata, man, I'm telling you right now, that's a position you got to watch. I don't know if you go back to Mike Caliendo, or maybe you consider another guard on the team like CJ Hansen, or maybe an interior offensive lineman like Connor Norzad. But Kingsley Suamata is starting to be a little bit of a concern to me. I hope he flips the switch in the regular season. Again, what I say earlier about Sky Moore and FAU, the Chiefs do not just want to give up on their first or second round picks. If they got to get rid of someone, they'll get rid of someone. We saw this with Kavari Russell, a third round pick who was let go, I think in week 3 or week 4 of his rookie season. And the guy turned into an NFL journeyman. So the Chiefs were right in letting him go. So Kingsley Suamata, man, this guy's on a very short leash right now. And I'm just looking at the free agents right now at the offensive guard position. I mean, who you have right now that you could maybe go to if you really feel like the Chiefs have to get somebody off the street? I mean, I don't know. There really aren't a lot of options here. Shaq Mason? I mean, he's still out there, I suppose. Didn't Brandon Scherf recently retire, or am I confusing him for someone else? To my surprise, Dalton Reisner is available, the former guard from K-State. He was drafted by Denver in the second round a few years ago. Is that a guy you consider bringing in? Not a lot of options here. The market for guards right now, not very good. So the hope is Kingsley Suamata flips the switch in the regular season, because if I'm judging just off last night, and I know we don't judge just off one game or one play, but it just hasn't really been the most impressive preseason for Kingsley Suamata. And I've said this before. I'm not expecting anyone who fills in at the left guard spot to look like Joe Thuney. That is an unrealistic expectation. But for God's sake, just be average. And right now, I don't know if I can say that about Kingsley at the moment. That's a concern. That is definitely a concern for the Chiefs, as they have a lot of new faces on this offensive line, a lot of young guys on this offensive line, and they want to make sure that they give Patrick Mahomes the best pass protection possible so they can maximize his potential during his time in Kansas City. That's what you're supposed to do. So that is a bit of a concern. Here's the biggest concern. The injuries are starting to stack up, especially at defensive back. You had Dion Bush last week suffer a season-ending injury. Mike Edwards, who's coming back to the team, he suffered an injury. Nazeeh Johnson dealing with an elbow injury, I believe. Noel Williams, the rookie cornerback who the Chiefs drafted, he is dealing with a concussion, so he's in the concussion protocol. He's going through that process at the moment. FAU, I know a player who I haven't really been too high on, nor has anyone else, but he suffered an injury as well. So you're starting to see some concerns on the defensive side of the football, specifically with the defensive backs. You got 2 safeties, 2 cornerbacks right now who are down with injuries. And it kind of makes you wonder what the Chiefs could do at that position right now. If you're looking specifically at cornerback and who's available, James Bradbury's there. Kendall Fuller, former Kansas City Chief, is available. Stephon Gilmore, too old. Now, a lot of these guys may not fit the scheme that Spags runs, especially with man coverage defense. Asante Samuel Jr., that'd be a name that I'd actually be interested in. Guy's still fairly young. Getting close to 26 years old. I would not be opposed to seeing the Chiefs bring him in for an opportunity, but you have more options at cornerback than you do at guard. That's for sure. If you want to look at the safety position real quickly, I talked about Justin Simmons. He's still available. I will say this: when guys are still available at this point, when you have 90-man rosters, it is a concern and a question. Maybe some of these guys don't want to go through training camp or the preseason and kind of want their Joe Flacco moment. Maybe not the best way to roll the dice, but hey, that's maybe what them and their agents have discussed. So they know more than me for sure. But I still think it's a concern that they're still available when we have 90-man rosters at the moment on NFL rosters. So a couple of options there in free agency if you have worst case scenario with a couple of these defensive backs on the team. That's really about it as far as my positives and negatives from this game here. Let me quickly go over the Rashee Rice situation and get you guys up to speed. So for those of you who don't know, the word is Rashee Rice will have a hearing on, I don't remember the exact date. It is going to be after week 4, the Tuesday after week 4. I believe that is the 29th of September. No, the 30th of September. 29th is a Monday, 30th is a Tuesday. Rashee Rice will have a hearing because it appears the NFL and the NFLPA and Rice's attorney, legal team, and agent, they're in a disagreement as to what his suspension is supposed to be. I believe Albert Breer said it's expected that he's going to get a double-digit game suspension. That's quite hefty. I was not expecting that. And I think the NFL is trying to show that there are players who have had similar instances in the past and they have not received a suspension this big. Listen, man, you guys know me. If you guys heard the podcast last year, the morning where the news broke and the video came out, I was not defending Rice on this at all. I have a really strong stance and a very low tolerance with people who get behind the wheel and act like knuckleheads. I mean, we got to call a spade here. So I'd hate to see it done to a Kansas City Chiefs player. But if the NFL needs to send a message that, hey, getting behind the wheel and doing things you should not be doing, like if you got to send the message on that kind of incident, I'm not going to push back on the NFL for this one here, man. As much as I'd hate to see Rashee Rice be used as an example here, because I think the NFL, here's the thing with the NFL. They've dealt with this for years. Players getting behind the wheel, under the influence, DUIs, that kind of thing. And guess what the NFL did? They provided a service where they'll cover cab costs or Uber costs for these players, even though they don't need it. They have the money for it. But because the NFL gets blamed for the actions of players off the field behind the wheel, the NFL's like, well, because of this PR world we're in, I guess we got to do something. So they're trying something. And I've always said many times, if the NFL was more strict on these kinds of things, if they handed out harsher punishments, I guarantee you, I think a lot of athletes would stop getting into trouble off the field, especially behind the wheel. A lot of these off the field incidents with NFL players usually involve being behind the wheel with alcohol or some sort of substance being used, or some sort of a domestic violent incident going on at home. I think the NFL's kind of starting to get fed up with these kinds of incidents stacking up, because even though, I mean, the product is at an all-time high with ratings, merchandise, ticket sales, all those stuff, but it's still a bad look on the NFL. Even though it's not impacting the rating, it's not impacting the amount of money that players are making. Players are making more and more money every year. We keep hearing about record-breaking contracts multiple times and per offseason. But I think the NFL still wants to do something about this. And if they want to hand out a hefty suspension and throw the book at Rashee Rice, shit, man, I'd hate it. I really would. But as someone who has many times spoke out against people who do wrong behind the wheel, you're not going to get any argument from me, man. You guys heard me say this about Britt Reed a few years ago because of what he did. Had a couple of drinks, had some other things in his system, and got behind the wheel, and you guys know the rest of the story. Now, we didn't see the Chiefs receive any punishment for it. In fact, I don't think we really got any clarity on some of that at all. I think the most we got was Clark Hunt saying, so let me back up a bit. That was the 2020 season. It happened in January of 2021, but it was still part of the 2020 season. That was, when we had the pandemic. And because of very strict restrictions, players were not allowed to go out to bars, restaurants, that kind of thing. That way they reduced their chances of getting COVID and increased their chances of being available for the game. There were also very strict restrictions as to certain gatherings that could take place in offices. So there were a lot of security cameras installed in team facilities across the NFL. And Clark Hunt did say that there was evidence shown that there was no gathering of other employees drinking with Britt Reed. Well, I don't think that was ever a question. I think the question was, did anyone know that he had alcohol in his office or wherever he was? But we never really got the answer to that. But my point was, if the NFL wanted to hand out any kind of serious consequence to the Chiefs because of that, I would not fight that, because once again, I have a very low tolerance. I have no tolerance, honestly, with people who do wrong and do things they should not do behind the wheel. Things are very serious. And it's honestly selfish if you think about it. Anyone that gets a DUI or they have anything in their system that they shouldn't have when they get behind the wheel, it's selfish because, number one, you put yourself at harm's way. And selfishly, you're also putting other people, innocent people, in harm's way with what you're doing. So I'd hate to see Rashee Rice be the poster boy for this. But man, I'm not going to fight it either. I'm not going to sit here and criticize the NFL and say, oh, well, they made him, they are using Rashee Rice as an example here. Rice has got to be ready to take any of these consequences coming his way. I would imagine, as Albert Breer said, it's expected to be a double-digit game suspension. Maybe a fine is in there somewhere. I don't know. So we'll see. Looking lean and mean. Thanks, Rob. Working on it. Man, I'm getting to the point where it is starting to get really, really difficult. There's not a whole lot of fat to lose. Still some room for improvement. I'm not done, but I'm losing less weight now because there is less weight to lose. But I'm not giving up. We're not done here yet. I'm still down 24-0 in the divisional round against Houston. I gotta score 28 points here, man. Can't do it in one quarter though. It's got to take a couple of quarters. All right, I'm gonna get back to the comments here and see. Chris, I just answered your question about Rashee Rice. I just can't see Patrick having confidence in throwing the ball to Sky. Yeah, Dana, I agree with you. Again, like realistically, I know there was Harold Kuntz of Fox 4. He mentioned that during the Chargers game last year in LA, because the visiting team's general manager and owner, generally speaking, they don't sit in like a fancy suite. They're usually in the same area as the media, with the PR guys and all of them. So apparently, when Sky Moore dropped the pass, Brett Veach pounded the table because he was upset with. He's obviously like us. He has very low patience for Sky Moore at the moment. And it was a bit of a disappointment. Does he make the team? Well, right now he's injured, and we don't know the severity of it. Does he make the team? I mean, he's on a rookie deal, so probably. But I just don't know what the expectation is from him at the moment. Ruben says you're overreacting. Don't give up on Kingsley Suamataia. Listen, man, I've been saying a lot of positive things about Kingsley. I've been saying all offseason that I think the speed of the game will be better for him at left guard than left tackle. And I also think, and I compared his size to some of the other guards the Chiefs have had the past 20 years, guys like Brian Waters, Jeff Allen. Who's the interior guard that played for the Colts? play a little bit of center for the Chiefs. Ryan Lilja. You look at some of the guards that have played for Kansas City in years past, and Kingsley does compare to a lot of those guys, very similar in size. So I've been on the Kingsley train at left guard. It's just again, preseason, I'm trying to be cautious here because I don't want to overreact for preseason games. But I do think the two most important positions on this football team, as far as evaluating in the preseason, left tackle and left guard. I like what I'm seeing from left tackle. I think Josh Simmons could have been a little better against the run in blocking there, but I think pass blocking is more significant right now. I just did not like what I saw from Kingsley last night. Pat only loses Super Bowls with a subpar offensive line. Yeah, that's been the Achilles heel for the Chiefs in those two not preseason Super Bowl losses. Yeah, Asante Samuel Jr. is available according to Spot Track. Yeah, I don't know why Justin Simmons is available. I don't know if people are maybe afraid of his age or they didn't like what they saw from him last year. I'm not sure. Andrew says Jalen Carter had his incident and got no suspensions. Okay, I have to push back on that a little bit, Andrew, because I think the big difference right there, and you're not wrong, it was a really bad incident. As soon as he got drafted, they were talking about it on ESPN. I don't know how NFL Network covered it. But let me say this. That incident happened while he was in college. If that happened while he was an NFL employee, while he was an NFL player, while he was with an NFL team, I think, yeah, he would have to deal with his suspension then. But because it happened before he got drafted, it's a separate deal. That's the way I view it. Maybe everyone views it differently, but I think that's the difference here. Okay, a lot of people are saying 6 to 8 games, settle for a 6 to 8 game suspension. Here's my thing. Let's say Deshaun Watson got 11 for a whole different incident. But and by the way, the judge or not judge, what exactly is her title? I want to get her name just so I have it right here. Where is the Rashi Rice? Sue Robinson. The case is going to be heard by her. Disciplinary officer. That's her title, according to Mark Mask. She was also there for the Deshaun Watson hearing. Now, let me say this. Here's my biggest concern on the Rashi Rice thing. If it is a hefty suspension, and I understand the NFLPA wants to fight this and they want to not let the NFL create an unfair precedent. My thing is this. Let's say Rice is available and plays the first 4 games, which is great because those are 4 very difficult games the Chiefs have on their schedule. However, and by all means, I'm not saying the Chiefs do not need Rice, but with Rice missing a majority of last season, Hollywood missing a majority of last season, Pacheco missing a majority of last season, with all the injuries the Chiefs dealt with, they still won 15 games, and a lot of them were one-score games. Again, want to be very, very clear on this. I'm not saying the Chiefs don't need Rice. They need him. They absolutely need him. I would rather Rice take the suspension he's got right now and let him come back for the second half of the season. If it's a 10-game suspension, okay, take the 10 games and come back in Thanksgiving, somewhere around there, whenever that suspension ends. Because the problem is, if Rice plays the first 4 games and then gets suspended 10 games, you're not coming back until probably week 15 or 16. I mean, the Chiefs are going to need him down the stretch. As big and significant those 4 games are in the beginning of the season, he's going to be needed in December when the Chiefs are probably trying to fight against the Bills or the Bengals or the Ravens, maybe even the Broncos for the number 1 seed. I don't think the Broncos are going to compete for a number 1 seed, but I would say the Broncos are going to try to at least give the Chiefs a run for their money, especially in the division. I do think Denver is going to make that next step up in the division. I really do. So ideally for me, let Rice start the season with that suspension. But if there's a way, I mean, I don't know how this all works. Like if the NFLPA says, okay, we agree to the start, but you have to be ready for a potential cutoff on the suspension through the hearing, or is it one of those things where once you agree on it and it's done? I don't know. I'm guessing it's the latter. Maybe that's why. Because ideally, I'd like to see Rice take the 10-game suspension, appeal it, and go through this hearing through Sue Robinson. And if they can cut it down, great. Cut it down to 8 or 6 or 4, whatever it ends up being. Then Rice can come back either at the midway point or somewhere in the second half, because that's when the Chiefs are going to need him. That's my concern with all of this. With this taking as long as it is, that's the big issue here. I think that's my concern. Is the longer it takes, Rice is going to be suspended during a time where you do not want him to be suspended. That's the big concern on my end. So it just continues to be a wait and see game. And this is one that's taking a very long time, longer than it really should. It's almost like the stadium deal. It's taking a long time. By the way, Trent Green and Ari Wolf, listen, Trent Green, nothing but respect to him for everything he's done for this organization. And I like the job he does as a broadcaster, especially alongside Kevin Harlan. I know he started off with Fox, I believe, made a switch to CBS and has been working with Kevin Harlan the past couple of years. But my God, that preseason broadcast was horrendous last night. And I get it. These local broadcasts are not the best, but they thought Carson Steele had a clear first down when he didn't. And then Matt Ariza has the team huddled up before a punt, and Trent Green is going, oh, wait, they're actually going for it. Oh, no, wait, they're not. That's Matt Ariza there. It's like, dude, I'm watching the game, and I knew they were not going for it. I saw Matt Ariza there. And then Kimmy Chex, who, again, Kimmy Chex does a great job with her side of things, but the way she was talking, we met with Steve Spagnuolo and we asked him about his relationship with Andy Reid. I mean, could you have sounded any more robotic in that moment? Dude, she had to have been reading off cue cards or something, a teleprompter, because that could not have sounded more robotic. And she's not like that at all. She's great at what she does. Man, I don't know what was up with that preseason broadcast last night, but that was bad. Maybe that's why I fell asleep. Because of how bad that broadcast was. Again, I'm not shitting on all those people there. I want to be clear. Like, they're all great at what they do. So that's why I was kind of surprised. Like, they're better than that. I just want to be very clear. So hopefully that last preseason game will be better for that crew there. All right. I believe that's it for the questions there. I'm caught up on that, and I covered the Rashee Rice thing there, and a lot of you guys were asking about that. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. My name is Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. No Red Friday Q&A live chat this coming Friday as well, because the Chiefs have a game, and I'll be there, of course, so we won't be able to do any kind of a live stream then. However, we'll still have a podcast this week. We'll do a podcast on Monday as we get closer and closer to the final preseason game. We'll do another podcast on Wednesday, our typical midweek Chiefs Zone podcast. We'll see who's on the bubble, who needs to make a push to make their case for the 53-man roster, and other news and notes that come up throughout the week. Once again, I'm Farzin Vasugian. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it. Let a friend know about the podcast. Make sure you're following on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of those social media channels. Until then, I will talk to you all on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Take care.